Welcome to this, the first video on our Tanworth Church YouTube page. My name's Paul Cudby and I'm the vicar, but I won't be the only person appearing in these videos. Over the coming weeks and months we'll be uploading sermons, whole services and meditations, some of which will have a strongly Forest Church flavour. This first one is all about Mothering Sunday. Those who work closely with me know that I have a tendency towards being somewhat forgetful. Fran, my PA, has forgiven me for it countless times. I kind of forget how many. But she excuses me on the basis of how many things I have to try and keep afloat in my head on any one day. Nice try, Fran, and much appreciated, but it is a failing. So it always amazes me what I do actually remember, especially from childhood. I mean, after all, childhood for me is quite a long time ago. Yet I can remember our family's first night in our new house. I must have been about 18 months old. And I can just about remember a great uncle in Norfolk teaching me how to tell the time, which meant my parents then had to buy me a watch because they'd promised that they would when I learned. I can even remember the watch with its little green glow-in-the-dark numbers, and my sister Ruth teasing me that that meant they were radioactive. But one that stands out is a memory of being ill in Cornwall on holiday, which is always a horrible time to be ill. The whole family went down, one by one, with a sickness bug. Now, we didn't have cute names like norovirus back then, it was just sick bug, and I was the first. Now, I don't know about you, but if someone tells me that they're feeling sick, I'm like, quick, put the razor wire up, man the gun emplacements, hose them down with chemicals. I'm not good with sick, in case that isn't obvious. So I remember lying on the sofa, on my back, trying to keep still so as not to throw up, and clearly being very anxious. My mother came and sat down next to me, and she just stayed there, stroking my forehead, gently calming me down. And my mother was doing this despite it being very clear that by being in such close contact, that probably meant she was going to catch it from me as well. Yet still she sat there, until I pulled myself back together again. Because that's what mothering is about, isn't it? Putting your children before yourself. All of which brings me to our reading. And this comes from Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 to 10. It's the birth of Moses. And it goes like this. Now a man from the house of Levi came and married a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a fine baby, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him, and plastered it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it, and placed it among the reeds on the bank of the river. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, while her attendants walked beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds, and sent her maid to bring it. When she opened it, she saw the child. He was crying, and she took pity on him. "This must be one of the Hebrews' children," she said. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Yes." So the child went and called the child's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed it. When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and she took him as her son. She named him Moses because, she said, "I drew him out of the water." Okay, so as a standalone, this seems like a pretty obscure reading. But if you've got the background to it, then you begin to realize that this is a story of motherly dedication and feminine subversion of patriarchal male rule. Let me explain. Generations earlier, the 12 sons of Jacob and their households, who'd been renamed by God as Israel, which means the one who wrestles with God, they'd moved to Egypt in a time of great famine in their own land. They'd been welcomed by the Egyptians as foreign labourers who knew how to work hard and help run the country. They grew in number, and they lived happily in Egypt for a long while, keeping their own religion and their own ways with no problems, until, that is, a new king, a new Pharaoh, rose to power. He began to stir racial hatred among the Egyptians about how much of a threat the Israelites were, and how one day they would turn on the nation. Now, right now, this sounds a bit like a modern story, and that just kind of goes to show that racial hatred of immigrants is nothing new. Anyhow, the Egyptians set the Israelites to forced labour as slaves. But that wasn't enough. Pharaoh wanted to reduce their numbers. So he called two of the Israelite midwives to him, called Shiphrah and Puah, and gave them instructions that they must kill any boy babies that were born. Being God-fearing women, of course, they didn't do that. So they were summoned by the Pharaoh, who now proves that as a man he is clueless about childbirth. They spin him this wonderful story that Israelite women are quite petite and frail, so childbirth is hard for them and takes a long while. But the Israelite or Hebrew women are kind of, shall we say, robust. One push and there's the baby. So by the time they get there to help, the baby's been born, and if it's a boy, then it's been hidden. Now, I love this because Pharaoh believes them. I can almost see him sticking his fingers in his ears and saying, no, 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 don't give me the details, la, 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 la. Anyhow, this means that he ramps things up further and instructs all the Egyptians that if they see an Israelite baby boy, they must throw him straight into the river Nile. And that brings us to the beginning of today's reading. Two unnamed people, a man and a woman, from the Israelite tribe of Levi, get married and have children, the second of whom is a beautiful baby boy. For 3 months they keep him a secret to preserve his life. But those of you who are mothers know just how hard it is to keep a baby quiet. Feeling that she's got no choice but to trust his survival into the hands of God, she makes him a little waterproof basket of papyrus and bitumen and places it in the reeds. Meanwhile, his big sister, inquisitive about what's happening with her baby brother, hides and watches. Now the baby's mother has cunningly placed him near to where Pharaoh's daughter comes to bathe, and she sees the child. She knows what race the baby boy is from, and I love the way she immediately disobeys her father, the nation's ruler. We don't know if she is yet a mother herself, but clearly all of her mothering instincts cut in, and there is no way she's going to kill this beautiful baby boy. Seeing her moment, the baby's big sister runs down to the riverside and basically says, I know someone who can nurse him for you. Pharaoh's daughter agrees, and the girl goes and fetches her mother, the baby's real mother. And Pharaoh's daughter actually pays her wages to wet nurse her own baby boy. Did Pharaoh's daughter know what she was doing? Wouldn't surprise me. There is a long history of women who have subverted male dominance throughout the Bible and in the stories of the rest of the world. So my guess is this was an unspoken collaboration of motherhood in this place to ensure the baby's survival. The end of the story tells us that when he was ready, his mother took him back to the palace where Pharaoh's daughter adopts him and calls him Moses. And all of this sets the stage for Moses to be brought up knowing the royal household and Egyptian ways, so that when the time would come, he would be perfectly placed to do what God commanded him and set the Israelites free. That's another story for another time, but in the meantime, what do we take from this story? Let me read you 3 other short passages from the Hebrew Bible. These were all written by prophets, so the intent is that we understand these sentiments as having come from the mouth of God. Hosea chapter 11 verses 3 and 4, God is described as a mother. God says, Yet it was I who taught Ephraim to walk. Ephraim's another name for Israel. I who took them up in my arms, but they did not know that I healed them. I led them with cords of human kindness, with bands of love. I was to them like those who lift infants to their cheeks. I bent down to them and fed them. Or there's Isaiah 49, verse 15, where God is compared to a nursing mother. God says, Can a woman forget her nursing child or show no compassion for the child of her womb? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget you. And Isaiah chapter 66 verse 13, where God presents as a comforting mother. God says, "As a mother comforts her child, so I will comfort you." Right back at the beginning of the Bible, in the book of Genesis, in the midst of the mythocentric hymn of creation, God determines to create humanity in God's own image. And so God creates us as male and female. Our nature is to be like God in all our wondrous rainbow colours. Yes, of course, we screw this up repeatedly, but in cosmological terms, our divine influenced nature is like some great attractor towards which we move. We are intended to be like God. And some of that runs so deeply in our veins that we could scarcely prevent it. And mothering is one of those instincts. Now, I'm neither a woman nor a parent, so I've got nothing direct to compare this with. Except that when I see someone who's anxious or worrying, I want to help. And I know you feel the same. Mothering is an awesome gift. And all I've got in my own nature is just a faint echo of the enormity of what I see in people like my own mother, and the love my two sisters have showed their children, with two of my nieces already carrying on the tradition. It's beautiful to see. And I see it day by day in the school community, in the church community, across our parish, across the world, of mothers caring for their children. Not all women are called to be mothers, and everyone can be a parent. Sorry, not everyone can be a parent, but I thank God for the witness to what love looks like in all its messiness and comforting, its joys and its sorrows, and I recognize when I look back through my own beliefs that this mothering has its roots in the very nature of God. The American theologian Rob Bell puts it like this: God says, "There is nothing you could ever do that would make me love you less." That's mothering love, and that's divine love, and that's human love. So thank you, mothers, for showing us something of what the nature of God is like. Now, at this time, more of us than ever, we're going to need mothering. In our communities, we are going to need to care for each other, and especially for those who have already given out their fair share of mothering and fathering for that matter when they were younger, and now need us to repay that debt of love to them. When we do this, we're not just being good people, we are actually living out the image of God within us. Do we need any more encouragement?